What is going on, folks? It is Steiner here, and it is part 2 of Secondhand Talent Storytime with Steiner and artist and producer Jamin Van Dillen. Welcome back to the show, Jamin.
Yo. So, before we jump in,
That was the latest yo ever. Real quick before we get into it, thank you to Luke Chu for the desk candy. Thank you to Tiny Steiner, my tiny co-host, and thank you to Mark Spusta for the shirt on my art. Now, let's you were saying something? Sorry. I think I cut you off.
so yeah, we were talking about earlier. You said there was like a real meaning behind secondhand talent. I was just kind of curious what's the real what was its original intent? Should
What
I
does
be should I
secondhand
be
talent
worried?
mean to me?
Should I be worried?
No, not at all. I love that. Folks, this is the first time we are starting out an episode with me answering that question. What does secondhand talent mean to me? Well, it means a lot of things, but I'll talk about what inspired the name of the show. I remember one of my very first stand-up comedy experiences. I was working as an assistant stage manager for a small music festival in Chicago. This was maybe 2 years or so into my career as a performer. So I was still very, very green, very new to the Chicago scene. Even though I was born and raised here, I did not start performing here. My first 2 years of performing were in Memphis, Tennessee, and in New York, in Long Island and Brooklyn. And then I came back to Chicago and got ingratiated in the scene here. And, spoken word was my thing, and I was the MC for this festival. And the stage manager came up to me and said, hey, man, Steiner, can you go up and do like, 10, 15, 20 minutes? I was like, there's a big difference in those three numbers. Like, which one do you want? Like, because I have a joke that'll last me 10 minutes, but like I might need 4 if I'm doing 15. Like, he goes, I ran out of announcements and there's a 20-minute changeover between this band and the headliner. We only had one stage. I was like, God. He's like, so you want 20 minutes?
And,
Like,
he just
in 20 minutes.
he just wanted to randomly do stand up at this show.
No, he wanted me to do stand up,
No, I know,
which
but
was
he was like
not part of
randomly that was his solution.
that was his solution, was to ask me. You know what? Now that you say that, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, like at least my mind goes to like, why don't you just play music or something? Like, have an interlude of just an intermission of music. I've never heard of that.
I can't believe it's been 18 years and I've never thought of that. That's amazing. I don't know why. There were some, from what I remember, there were some sort of like stage technical difficulties where like there was like silence on the PA during the changeover. Otherwise, it was
Oh,
just like
okay.
feedback city, and it was not well put together. And the only solution was me talking through a single directional mic and like and telling jokes, which again, and especially in light of what you just added, is insane, especially for an outdoor festival stage with 5,000 people there. But you know, I have faith in my material, and I got up and did the 20 minutes, got a standing O, and walked off the stage happier than a motherfucker. And I never reached a point in my stand-up career where I would say I was successful in the terms of, I mean, I think I write good jokes, but I never saw myself as a comedian whose name was on the marquee. I always saw myself, but if you need 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40, just let me know and I'll hop up on stage again. So I'm a secondhand comedian. And, you know, those are like the local openers that get no attention, that are really doing the really hard 5 minutes to open the show, and nobody gives a fuck about them, and people are filtering in and nobody's paying attention to them, and they've got to pretend like the room is full and everybody's rapt and staring at them. And
Except
I
except for
really,
except for the people that went to your Michigan show that wanted a picture with you.
except for the ones
They gave a
that
fuck.
wanted
They
a
gave a
picture
fuck
with me.
about you.
Now here's the thing. Yeah, shout out to you wherever you are. But here's the thing. You know, I write good jokes and I stand by my material. You know, I really, you know, I still tell jokes that I wrote 20 years ago, because they're good. But at best, I'm a secondhand comedian, and I don't think that the quality of my jokes is any less than anyone who's selling out arenas. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's not worse. And that's kind of the ethos of Secondhand Talent as a show, in my estimation, is that the people who we interview, the talent is no less. It's just often overlooked.
That's cool. So essentially, the name is kind of derived from your experience of you kind of viewing yourself as a secondhand comedian.
Yeah, you know, and again, there's no shame in that. You know, there's a lot of, gosh, if I could count the number of people who have come up to me and I let them know, or not who come up to me, but just in general, in conversation, it'll come up that I do stand up, and say, oh man, I always wanted to do stand up. Oh God, I have heard that so many times, and my response is always the same. It's just, then do it. What do you have to lose? Like, we're in Chicago. I could give you 7 open mics any night of the week. Like, if you think you're funny, if your friends think you're funny, what do you have to lose? Go try it. And then you don't have to say, oh, I always wanted to anymore. You at least tried it. Like, there's no harm in trying, right? There's no harm in putting yourself out there and being open to getting booed. Like, if you went into producing, genuinely, I want to turn this back to you as a producer, right? If you, what do you think the output would be if you went into every song thinking that it would be a Billboard #1?
I never think that. I'm always. I'm
Exactly.
always. Yeah, I never think that. I never think. Yeah, I never think about money. I never think about. That's always like, you know, the people that like. I'm kind of selective on who I work with because I have to. Like, when it comes to music, it's like a spiritual thing for me. Like, there has to be like a connection. So, yeah, like, it's not. Like, I mean, like, I value what I do, so I charge people. But like, if I don't have that, like, if it doesn't feel right, like, if it just feels money, like I'm gonna make a lot of money for this, like there's no connection. I turn it down because I don't really give a shit about that. Because yeah, that never, yeah. When I'm making music, I never think if this is gonna be a hit. I'm always just so enamored in the process and just how fun it is. Like you're literally like wielding something out of nothing, you know, like you're pulling something out of thin air and making, like, you're creating this like physical 3D thing in sound. It's like fucking always just so fascinating to me because I always just sit back and I'm like, how'd that even happen? Like, and I'm just having so much fun, you know.
So what's an experience that you had where you put together a song and the artist heard it and was like, what the fuck did you do to this? Wow.
I hear that a lot because another thing that I've learned to trust is sometimes I'll have artists come to me and they're really like they'll show me songs like, oh, I want it to sound like this artist and like this production and that, and then sometimes when I'm working on the song, I don't know, like the kind of like spirit of it or whatever like tells me something different, and I've always learned to do that, and it's like rarely ever failed me, because what happens is I'll bring it back to the artist and they're like, what the fuck, I would have never thought of that, and they absolutely love it. So it's fun to be able to do that, you know.
How much of that do you attribute to that sort of ghost in the machine zeitgeist, and how much of that do you attribute to your own keen perspective, just as an outsider, having, as you said in our previous episode, like approaching each song like a blank canvas?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's like it's like there's a method to what there's like a method to what I do, but then also like there's just a place that I get to where I don't know, I just let go, and it's like the inhibitions or fear, anxiety, like all that just kind of leaves when I get into that zone, and it's like a very channeled, godly kind of, you know, thing that it's like I'm just able to tap into something that's bigger than me, and I get guidance, and I'm choosing, and it could even be with samples, like, you know, sometimes I you know, I kind of started where I was always making everything from scratch, and then I started using royalty-free samples, and I mean, like, if I have a choice, I love working with session players, because I can, like, I'm a hack piano player, I'm a hack drummer, you know, so when the budget's there, I love to be able to hire other musicians, and I'm able to get, you know, 10 different variations of a song and different perspectives, and like that's what's fun for me. Is like, so I'm like the orchestrator and director, and like just putting like, oh, I hear this, and like let's match this with that, and so I just kind of get into this space where you know, I'm pulling all those pieces together, and it's really fun for me, and it just like, yeah, any intention or like, I just have to get out of my own way, essentially, and again, like, even artists, like, I have to I kind of override what I think that, like, what they tell me sometimes, because I like what's coming through, I always honor it, and sometimes they may not like it, but I have to kind of get that through to be able to get to the next step, like, you know, but yeah, most of the
I
time they're
was
always
gonna
like,
say, well, I was gonna say, like, there's got to have been some occasions where you're getting pushback on that if you're taking that. I mean, it's a good approach. I mean, having faith in your art is, you know, the essence of what we do as artists. But there's got to, I was gonna say, there's got to have been some pushback sometimes from, you know, that
it's
sort
rare.
of flow
It's
state
rare.
approach.
It's rare for me, but it really starts from, if I'm paying attention and I'm saying yes to the clients, the artists that feel right for me, then I don't really get any pushback at all. It's if I'm accepting jobs where I'm like, this doesn't feel like a good fit, it doesn't feel aligned for me, then that's when I'll get the pushback, because it's like, some artists, I don't think they'll treat a producer kind of like it's not as valuable as how much they value themselves, and I think that they block off the opportunity to co-create together and make something bigger than what they came in with it. And usually those are the people where, like, I can sense that they have a rigidity, or they're just like, they know what they want, and I'm just not that guy to do it, and I'm okay to say no, because I don't really, you know, like for me to go in to do something, and I'm not allowing for that kind of magical moment to come in to create something where I'm like, whoa, this is amazing, and the artist is like, whoa, this is fucking awesome. If I'm not saying yes to those, then I'm saying yes to something that's not going to allot for that type of situation, and that's what I've learned, from working with tons of people and knowing like, yeah, I don't want to work with this person, and this person's a pain in the ass, and so that's kind of where that comes from. So again, it's like you pre-vet that by using intuition and choosing the right type of artist that that feels right for the producer, essentially.
Yeah, I can relate to that somewhat, as a podcast host, in the sense of like, choosing who I ask to be on the show. And again, this is not a slight to anyone I haven't asked. We're only 100 some odd episodes in. We're getting there. But one of the ways that I get to be intentional is, I would not ask someone whom, if they said yes, I would turn back to them and say, sorry, the season's full. You know what I mean? Like, I would never offer it to someone to whom I would refuse in the first place, because I feel like that's very disingenuous. That's not the right way to behave. Now, if somebody says to me after I reach out, I appreciate the offer, but, it's not the right time, or, this, that, or the other, you know what? I respect that. And honestly, every time that has happened where someone, and we're talking about all the way from the beginning of season 1, people who I've asked to be on the show. Some of them have not been on yet. Some of them have. And every time they have come on the show, it was a better interview for it. It was a better episode for it. All good things and all good time. Like Jerry said, like it really is like a real true thing that, when you put that intentionality into just who you want to bring in, the no's can't hurt, because, it's out of grace. And the yeses are all that more special, because then you get to spend that extra time with that person and hopefully get some knowledge from them, and even more hopefully spread it around to others. And that is not something I really had thought of prior to this conversation, and that intentionality. Not to say that I go out of my way to exclude people from being on the show. That's not the case. But I, at the end of the day, am in control of who I ask to be on the show. And that makes the no's much easier to take, because I know that I'm not asking all of these people, and I know that the people who are saying no are saying it with good intentions and for good reasons, for whatever stage they're at in their career, time period, life, whatever it may be. Yeah, it's not something I really had considered before you brought that up, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like
Reflect on that a little bit.
I always feel like every no opportunity that you say no to, like it'll come back as a yes with something that's even better. Like there's been times I've turned down a lot of money, and there were times when I really needed it too, and then like I just had to trust, and I trusted in that, and then the like aligned opportunity came, and that's happened. I mean, that happens so many times for me. Like, I'm a real firm believer in that. Like every bad situation, there's always like a positive on the other side of it, and that's very true. I mean, it's just, I don't know, I just don't like to do stuff when it doesn't feel right. It makes me feel, it's hard for me to write too. Like, it's difficult. Like I just, it feels like shit. I feel dirty.
Oh, yeah, there's one specific scenario. I will not name the person just out of what little shred of respect I have for them. Long story short, there was going to be a potential investor in Secondhand Talent who disappeared at the last moment. And it was a significant dollar amount. It was a significant percentage. It was like, this was a real conversation that was happening. And I am so grateful in the rear view that disappeared. It sucked when it was happening because it felt like the rug got pulled out from under us in like the most sincere fashion possible. Like over five figures, and it was life changing at the time, and it was something that just was absolutely devastating. And looking back on it, was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
That's great.
I mean, the
Yeah,
dollars at the end of the day, are not worth the strife that I now know that it would have caused, and put a
right.
lot of
Yeah,
things
yeah.
into perspective.
Yeah, those are other great situations too, where the things you thought were gonna really work out and they fall apart, and you're like, why did that happen? And then yeah, you get shown all this information. You're like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, I mean, especially coming from a place of like, we don't, this isn't a profit generating endeavor, right? We're not making buku bucks over here at Secondhand Talent, and that's fine. That's not the goal. If that was the goal, we wouldn't be here. Over 100 episodes in, as I keep saying. But if it was really the bag that I was after, this is not the path that I would necessarily take. I don't really care about how big this show gets. I know for a fact that the right people are hearing it. And the way our producer Mario, shout out to you, Mario. The way our producer joined the show, he was listening to the interview, one of my season 3 interviews, and called me and just asked if he could help out. And he's been with us since the beginning of season 4 now, so it's half the show.
That's
So
awesome.
it's yeah. I mean, and again, like, you can't. There's no employee you could hire that has that could possibly have that same energy, that could possibly have that same tenacity and work ethic, and just wanting things to happen and manifesting things happening, if it doesn't happen that organically.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's take a beat for a minute.
Sounds good.
So let's wrap it back around. We this was I gotta say, one of the more fun episodes, pair of episodes that I've done on the show in a long time. It's been nice to kind of kick back and just let the stories flow, and just talk for a while. We don't really. I feel like that's what a lot of podcasts are. And this show is really, kind of back and forth, really about, the people. And, one of the things that I was realizing as we were, reaching the, sort of denouement of this part 2, is that we never really covered, what got you into producing in the first place. So two questions. One, what kind of music did you start out with? And two, what was the music that got you interested in production?
That's a great question. Um, The first music I started doing, actually, like I produce a lot of different music, but the first music I actually started producing was dance music, actually. But I mean, I grew up listening to all sorts of stuff. I think, I think kind of my, like, to really take it back, I've had this kind of ability that I've, you know, figured out later on, where I really can, I can really connect with the emotion of human beings. And so when artists have songs, I'm always really interested in, like, let me read the lyrics. What is the song about? Like, tell me the story, you know? So I always could really connect with that. And I not unknowingly, but when I was 5 years old, the first CD I ever bought was Johnny Mathis. And I remember I listened to, like, his songs are really sad, you know? And they're always like heartbreak or like losing love, you know, something like around those topics. And I remember listening to his music, and it was so sad. Like, I was 5 years old and I was like crying. And I just could really connect. I don't know, music would just hit me in an emotional way. So like that was like my training started when I was really young. And my father was a musician. He sounded just like James Taylor. He played guitar, he could play like any instrument. He was really talented. And then my older brother started DJing when he was 14, and he was always into hip hop, like everything hip hop. And so I watched him, and then when he turned, like, maybe he was like, I don't know, like around like 19, or yeah, I think he was like 19, 18 or 19. He started getting this beat machine, like, I forget the name of it. Like, we used to have like one of those old Roland drum machines that was my father's. My dad passed away when I was 17, when we inherited his little drum machine, but my brother had that, and he had like some other stuff, and then he ended up getting like an MPC. So my brother was kind of a dick and like never wanted me to touch his stuff, but every once in a while, if he was using it, it would be okay for me to like play around with it. So I started messing around with it, and I loved it, and it was fun for me. And then when I turned 18, that was when my brother started using Cubase, and he was making beats on the computer, and I started getting into that. And when he got that, he had this, it was like a Yamaha, like a Yamaha KX70, I forget the name, but it was a mini portable, like a DAW essentially, like in a little, like it looked like a Game Boy, and you can make beats on it. And my brother gave me that because he was like, I'm using Cubase now, like I don't need it. So he gave that to me, and that's when I started making dance music. And I loved it. It was really fun. And then I got into a punk band, and I was playing drums, and I was in this punk band, and my brother slowly started introducing me into Cubase, and I loved it because it was like way upgraded, and I had all these instruments, and I was like, wow, I can be the whole band. And my band at the time, it was a 3-piece punk band. I was the drummer, and the guitar
You're a little
player.
limited there.
What was that?
You're a little limited there.
Oh yeah. Well, the part that was a pain in the ass was that the guitar player and the drummer, or the guitar player and the bass player, would fist fight each other sometimes, and then they all had girlfriends, and so it was really disruptive for band practice. It was like the girlfriends were upset, or the bass player and the guitar player were fighting. So it was like, it was always something. So for me, I kind of took refuge to, my music was evolving more on my own with using production, and I just had a blast with it. And that's really when it super hit, and I just became obsessed, and I've been making music ever since.
That's what it's all about, folks. It's about lifelong passion and brothers who are dicks. Because I have a couple of younger ones that resemble that remark. I became a comedian out of spite. I couldn't play anything, so I started telling jokes, and it's something I became passionate about. What I truly found that I'm passionate about is stories, and it's really great to hear, that this passion has existed in you for such a long time, and that you're continuing to bear that torch of that passion and evolving on from Q beats at this point in in our technological lives. But that was a beautiful little story there, and I think that was a really poignant way to wrap up part two of story time with Steiner and Jamin. But before we go, any parting words you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think just the theme of, like people like, this is probably more toward, well, I mean, it's just really artistry in general. I think, when those moments come in and you have that, like, oh, that idea, like, just drop everything you're doing and like just get it down, record it, write it down, whatever, so you have a finalized version, because that energy, when it lands in that moment, it's always the most poignant, it's always the strongest, it's always, so that's what I would part with, because I feel like we've been touching on those topics quite a bit throughout the conversation, and I think that's what I would leave everybody with, is like, literally drop your shit. Like, you're gonna not regret, leaving that dinner party that you were at and looking like a dick for a half hour, or like getting cussed out by your girlfriend. Like, you won't forget that, but the recording that you have, or what you wrote down, that will always be there forever,
Folks, I just want to drill home the poignancy of what Jamin just had to say right there, because this interview was not even going to happen. And we were talking about it on the phone, and Jamin said, you know what? This conversation is flowing. Let's just fucking do it. Let's go. And here we are at the end of part two. So the man is living the advice that he is preaching. So folks, take it seriously when he says it. This is Jamin Van Dillen. I'm Steiner. This is Secondhand Talent. It's a podcast. We will see you next Wednesday.